Let's begin with breaking updates coming in. The center is turning up the heat on Meta over online content moderation, with MEITY seeking a detailed compliance roadmap from the tech giant. So the government is seeking a compliance roadmap from the tech giant. Deepfakes, propaganda and flagged content are under the scanner, with the government pushing for stronger moderation systems and faster takedowns. The latest move could mean a significant overhaul of how Meta handles problematic content in India. My colleague Sabyasachi is joining us on the broadcast with the details. Sabyasachi, these conversations between the center and Meta have been going on for some time now. What are the details of the compliance roadmap that the government is seeking from the tech giant? What are the details?
Well, Pratibha, it's a detailed response that the government has sought from Meta. In fact, for 3 consecutive days, we have seen that the government met Meta officials in the national capital, and the latest what we are picking is that both sides have agreed upon that there should be 100% compliance. In fact, Pratibha, time and again, the government had said that Meta is, since it is functioning in India, it has to follow the Indian laws. It cannot function as per the US laws. Now, the government have demanded that if there are inappropriate content or propaganda as well as deepfakes, it needs to be immediately taken down within a time framework. Now, the time framework has been decided of 3 hours, where the government itself on 6th have said that the timeline, which had been earlier decided of 36 hours, it has been reduced to 3 hours, and for sensitive topics, it has come down to 2 hours. So the government has made their intention extremely clear and had put across firmly to Meta. Pratibha.
Okay, all right, stay with us. So 3 hours, and that is the clock ticking for social media platforms when they receive a valid government notice or court order to remove unlawful content, and that the government has sharply tightened the timelines elsewhere as well. So for sensitive compliance, these complaints that come in involving categories such as nudity and impersonation, platforms now have just 2 hours to act. For ordinary grievances, the response window has been cut from 72 hours to 36 hours. But the bigger change goes beyond this particular clock, because large platforms with more than 50 lakh users in India are expected to use automated tools to proactively detect rape content, child sexual abuse material, and also previously removed material. And there is a significant consequence for platforms that also fail to comply. They can lose Section 79 safe harbor protection that shields intermediaries from liability for third-party content. And that means the new framework puts platforms under much greater pressure to identify, review, and remove flagged content very quickly. And that is precisely where the free speech debate begins. So let's get you the details of what the rule actually says. So now a clear indication coming in that any illegal content needs to be taken down within 3 hours. So any sensitive grievances will need action within 2 hours. Apart from that, any of the AI-generated content as well must be clearly labeled by the platforms, and there should be traceable metadata that will be made mandatory. Now, users also have to be warned of the legal consequences that come with such content. Apart from that, the CSAM, the child sexual material, intimate pictures, impersonation, all of it is now covered under these new rules. So any harmful AI content must be stopped, and platforms need to deploy automated detection tools. So any deepfakes that are violating the law must also be blocked immediately by the platforms themselves. And apart from that, any failure to comply may cost safe harbor protection, and the government has made it clear that these rules will come into effect. So which means that the onus becomes on these platforms. The government's online rules, or this content regime, has already triggered a lot of politics and a lot of backlash as well. In fact, voices are questioning whether a 3-hour takedown clock leaves enough room for being able to distinguish genuinely unlawful content from any kind of political criticism. So, Sabyasachi, there is a lot of criticism or a lot of politics around these new rules as well, with the opposition also raising questions on whether this will actually be unlawful content or whether this would also mean a crackdown on any kind of political criticism.
Well, Pratibha, that's right. A lot of questions are being raised regarding the effectiveness of this. Now, I'm being also joined by senior Supreme Court lawyer and cybersecurity expert, Mr. Pavan Duggal, sir. How effective do you think is that the new IT rules, which has been amended as per the new law, they have to take down sensitive contents or inappropriate contents within 3 hours?
The rules are having the right place and the right vision. But the unfortunate issue is that the rules are silent as to what will be the legal ramifications if you do not comply with the said rules. So to that extent, we find that the IT rules 2026 are not being complied with because there are no legal ramifications that are determined should you go ahead and violate the law. Any rules and regulations that come must define the legal consequences for non-compliance. Now, because legal non-compliances are not defined, therefore, most of the people are saying we'll wait and watch. So look at these rules. They are saying, please, you'll have to label AI-generated content. But hardly anyone is doing that. The reason for this is they have 10 more excuses to offer. And fact also remains is that we don't have a dedicated law on artificial intelligence in the country. That also gives people the handle or the license to argue that, look, these rules cannot be effectively enforced because who ultimately will bear the cost of labeling of AI content? And that's one area we've been finding from 20th of February 2026 till date. These rules are just up in thin air. They're not being implemented, and I think they are remaining as paper tiger.
Mr. Duggal, a lot of the people have to say that how is it possible for the government or for Meta to monitor real time, where the government have said that the real time monitoring or the traceability of the deepfakes has to be done?
Well, clearly, if you are providing AI on your platform, then it's your responsibility to provide adequate attribution mechanisms and real-time monitoring. How you do it is your responsibility or your headache. You can't say, look, because it's difficult for me to do, I will not do it. It's the law of the land. You have a choice. Go and challenge this law in the court of law, get it struck aside, set aside, and then don't comply with this. But till such time it's the law of the land, you'll have to ensure compliance. And what is Indian government saying? Indian government is only saying, please ensure that damage, injury, loss does not get caused to Indian citizens as a result of use of AI, which I think is a very legitimate concern of any sovereign government. So I think the IT rules 2026 are the right step in the right direction. The only thing they have lacked is the effective enforcement, and the fact is that the government is not even enforcing them. Possibly the thought process could be that maybe, let's wait for technology to mature or stuff like that. But having said that, from the downside angle, I find that intermediaries now need to be prepared that should they be seen to be non-compliant with the IT rules 2026, we can always argue that they would have lost their statutory exemption from legal liability, because non-compliance with existing rules means you don't comply with the IT Act and rules, which is one of the 4 primary conditions given under Section 79 of the IT Act for limiting of your liability and for getting the statutory exemption from legal liability.
So, Duggal, what do you think, what will be the challenges? Because the government has told Meta that you pick what people see. So under these circumstances, your safe harbor can be taken off.
I think in this case, the safe harbor has already been taken off. There's no question of can be taken off. The reason for this is once intermediary like Meta decides it's not complying with the law or does not fulfill any of these 4 conditions, whether it's complying with the IT Act and rules and regulations, whether it's exercising due diligence while discharging its obligations, whether it's conspiring in the commission of any offense, or whether it's not removing any content which it's been asked to remove. You don't fulfill any of these 4 conditions, period. The law says your statutory exemption from legal liability is taken away from you by operation of law, not subject to the whims and fancies of the government or any interpretation. So in this case, the very fact that two things have happened. Number one, they have given flimsy excuses for blocking of Prime Minister's video. First on, say, they said legal ground, then they said technical glitch, then they said sorry. I think we have to understand that sorry does not exist as a concept under the Information Technology Act. This is a special law, and the provisions of the same prevail over anything inconsistent therewith contained in any other law for the time being in force. But that's one component. A much bigger, stronger and disturbing component is your publication, dissemination, transmission and active promotion of CSAM content. That, I think, is a patent contravention and offence both under the Information Technology Act, under the POCSO Act and the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita.
Okay, all right. Sabyasachi, will come back to you in just a moment. Let's break down the details of how this is going to affect the content online. So any unlawful content needs to be removed within 3 hours of orders from the government or from the court. That has been made clear. Apart from that, how will any content on nudity as well as impersonation be dealt with? The platforms must act within 2 hours. So 2 hours is the timeline that has been given, and within 2 hours, action needs to be taken. On issues of user complaints, the platform must respond within 36 hours. Again, it is a huge reduction from earlier 72 hours to now 36 hours. And on AI-generated content, clear labels and traceable metadata must be provided. And any platforms with 50 lakh plus users, the automated tools will detect unlawful content. This has been made very clear in the new rules. And this has, of course, sparked off a debate.